To business school, I spoke about the money that you will spend not only at school but during the pre-application process, and recommended creating a budget, and also some tips on how to ace the GMAT. The next section that I will speak to is the essay writing process, and then also the strategy I used in creating my application. So first we'll talk about the essays. The first place that I recommend you start is looking at the previous year's essays. Yes, they do change from year to year, but this is a good benchmark and a starting point. If you can answer those essays, usually the stories that you will use to answer those essays, or the accomplishments, you will use them in the next year's essays. It just gets you thinking of the types of questions those programs are going to answer, and you can find those on the school websites. The next portion I recommend is that I did was I made a list of accomplishments, or situations where I showcased my leadership skills, and then where I felt I made an impact. And that does not mean you have to be in a management role, or you could have been within a team. So just think of all the things that you're proud of, that you feel you have accomplished something, and you can write them down, and they don't have to be substantial. They could be substantial to you, and that's what's important. Another is make sure that they're both inside and outside of work, so that they show how you've done in a work environment, but also what else you're passionate about. I think that's that would cover the accomplishments. So creating that list of accomplishments, and the next section I'll talk about the process, and the process that I came up with. Everyone's a little different. Some people will write an essay, they're great writers, and they're pretty much done, and might ask someone else to review it. I had a little bit more of a process. I did it over several months' time, to give myself time to think about how I would answer the essays. So I created drafts. I reviewed the draft. I rewrote my drafts, and I repeated those first 3 steps until I had a final copy, and I submitted my essays. You might, so these first 3 steps I repeated over and over again until I felt the final copy was significant. I mean, it was ready to submit. So the first couple of reviews, you might say that sounds pretty self-explanatory, but the first couple of reviews were were myself, done by myself. The next review, I asked my friend who was a writer. She's actually a journalist, so writing is her craft, and to give me insight to make sure it sounds, everything sounds right and it's written correctly. And then what I did is I asked someone who had an MBA to read it. If you know an alumni from the school of which you're applying, that is even better. So those were two things that I would I used. So I read it myself, got feedback from my friend who's a journalist, and then had someone who has an MBA read it right before I rewrote it for my final copy. So I'll just say rewrite and put in the right context. So that's the process that I used to come up with my essays. And then what I would also say is make sure that your essays are specific, and also unique to the question that they're answering. So they're specific, meaning you can't cross out you can't give the essay to someone else and they can say, oh, that essay would fit for me as well. It has to be specific to you, unique, and then also specific to answering the question that is asked of the school. What I mean by, I guess, unique answers, maybe there's another way to say it, but make sure that if you write an essay, you don't write it in such a way you can cross off the name of the school and use that same essay to answer a question for another school. It probably means that essay is not specific enough. So those are two tips I would give. I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy, but I'm going to start with the strategy of how to match up your list of accomplishments with your essays. So first, let's say that your list of accomplishments. So I'll just say A1 for accomplishment 1, A3 and A4 and A5. So you may have listed more than this, but I will start there. I will copy that and create another list. Let's say this is school 1. So this is a highlighted school 1, and schools usually have 3 to 4 essays. So let's say E1 through 4, showing the essays. And what you want to do is pair up your accomplishments with these essays. So let's make this easy. Let's say accomplishment 1 fits with essay number 1. Accomplishment 2 fits with essay number 3. Accomplishment 3 fits with essay number 2. And for the last one, accomplishment 4 fits with essay number 4. So you can see how creating a list and then figuring out which one would fit best before you even start drafting the essay helps you make sure that you created a balance within your essays, that you spoke about accomplishments both inside and outside of work, that's not all personal or all professional. It allows you to create a balance and may save work later on. And then as you do it I would recommend doing this for each school. So I'm going to copy this and say S2 for school 2, and you'll repeat the same process with, or I recommend repeating the same process for each school, because each school is going to be slightly different. So let's say accomplishment 1, best answers essay 2, accomplishment 2, best answers essay 3, 3, 4, and for the last one, I don't think 4 fits, but accomplishment number 5, best answers essay number 1. So you can see how each school can be different because these essay questions are going to be unique for each school, and that's the process that I used in matching up my accomplishments to the essays for the schools. So going back to the overall strategy, an admissions officer once told me, think of your application as a pie, and think of all the pieces of your application as slices, and the pie gives or your application gives is your representation of yourself, and you have to consider all the pieces as you're going forward. So think of it as a holistic representation of yourself. So you might say, okay, well, what are the different pieces? So think of your resume, which has your also includes your GPA. The GMAT is a component. your essay, let's say put essay 1, essay 2, essay 3, essay 4, your recommendations, interview, your transcript. All of these are pieces that feed into the application process. And then as you're doing this, and I'm going to use some of the headers at the top. It showcases about your professional, says something about you professionally, says something about you personally, might align with the mission of the school, maybe there's a unique theme that you want to showcase throughout your experience, or there may be other some type of other point that you want to communicate as part of your application that is not included in the list. These are just examples of headers. You can include whatever you would like, but this is what I did. Is I created a grid and said to myself, okay, in order to understand the balance of what's included in my application, I looked at each one of these pieces and said, okay, what is it contributing to my overall application? So let me take 1 second to fill this in. All right, that's a little it's a little crude, but it works. So your resume, of course, is going to be your professional self, but maybe as well you have a strong GPA, and that can showcase your success or over time. So that may be something. Your GMAT, let's say you do exceptionally well on the GMAT, and it showcases your quantitative skills. That's something that your GMAT, if you don't showcase your quantitative skills there, you're going to want to make sure that they're showcased in your transcript. Where this grid gets more useful is during the essay process. So one essay can be professional. Another one, let's say, is more personal in nature. What speaks to the mission of the school is teamwork. So teamwork is big. So you tell you give an example that represents teamwork in the essay number 3, and so on and so forth. So you can see how maybe as you fill in your application, maybe you're emphasizing your personal experience too much, or you're talking about the mission but you're not being unique in what you're responding, or there's no common theme in within your entire application. So those are examples of things you can do to create a balance in your application. In the next video, I will take some time to talk about recommendations and interviews. One last thing that I would talk about is in looking at this grid is, let's say this is school number 1, and for essay 1 you used accomplishment 1. For essay 2 you used accomplishment 3. For essay 3 you use accomplishment 2, and for the last essay you used accomplishment 4. Where you can use a little bit of strategy is maybe asking your recommenders to cover accomplishment 5, if this was school number 1, in your application, to make sure it shows a holistic picture of you. I hope those tips were useful. See you in the next video.